Hey there, Packers fans. It's Joseph Randolph, Brian Maafi here. It's draft season. Packers Draft Room coming back with you with another episode focusing on the running backs. Last week we had the quarterbacks and we covered everybody with the combine invite. But this week we're only going to talk about a couple guys. The guys are at the top of the list who will probably give you guys a little bit of excitement as we get into those second, third, and maybe fourth round picks. Brian, how do you feel about today's class?
It's not a great class, mostly because of NLI. A lot of guys decided to go back to school. So outside of after the first couple rounds, or not a couple rounds, the second round, third round, kind of falls off after that. But even then, it's not. There's maybe one guy, maybe one or two guys that'll go second round.
Yeah, NLI is taking a chunk out of all the classes, probably for the foreseeable future, especially a running back that doesn't have a long life in the NFL. Guys will opt to take the money that they have in the hand versus, test the NFL and possibly be out in the street, maybe a year, 2 years later. But we do have some good guys available. Let's start off with the guy who showed out at the Senior Bowl, Cody Schrader from Mizzou. How do you feel about him?
He's an interesting story. Another guy. He went to a really tiny school, school I had never even heard of before. I think last year, actually, he came to Mizzou last year, and he had like 700 yards or something like that. And so I thought it was interesting. I looked him up and I watched some of his film last year, and I thought, oh, okay, it looks kind of interesting. Could be a potential pick. And then he kind of blew up this year, of course. But he's a little dude, about 5'9", a little over 200 pounds. Not a great athlete, but he can play. Yeah, he had like 1,600 yards this year, but his prospect as an NFL player is probably not as high as he was as a college player. But he's a day 3 guy you can pick up and be a solid player in the league.
Yeah, he came out of Truman State, which is another place I've never heard of. But it's a guy that bet on himself. He walked on to Mizzou from a D2 school, which is hard to do. I don't care where you come from. You're coming from D2, D3, and you jump to the SEC. I think that's something to be said of, the kind of skill that you do have. And he started off, demanding reps and then finish it off as their number one back. And I think the fact that he was able to show out at the Senior Bowl says, at least a draftable grade. I'm thinking fifth round. I mean, probably for him, size and speed is probably the biggest thing. Yep. But you like grinders. You like a guy who can, get between the tackles, move the pile. He showed a little bit of shiftiness because I think he caught 3 balls at the Senior Bowl and went for at least 2 first downs. I think he can carve out a role. I think, the NFL likes to shy away from these 5'8", these 5'9" backs, but you can't really write them all off. And with the NFL becoming the space game it is now, that will give smaller players an opportunity when, guys who are really just smaller and more electric are starting to prevail out there versus the gargantuan gladiators we used to see of yesteryear. So I'll be pretty excited to see him, and what he can do at the next level. You think the Packers are interested?
Probably not. I mean, he's 5'8", and his athleticism is not that high. So, I mean, maybe if he drops type of thing, but I don't think he's going to be really high on their board. But I think, like I said, if he drops 6th round or something like that, maybe 7th round, maybe they'll take a shot at him.
Not a lot of guys to choose from, overall. So it may not be if he drops, it may just be, he's what's left of the bin. But not to take anything away from Schrader. I think he's a very solid back. He just may not necessarily be long for the Packers.
Right.
So, moving on, we've got a guy that I know a lot of fans are really interested in, and that's national champion Blake Corum out of Michigan. I enjoyed watching him throughout this season. He's definitely another guy you don't want to bet against. He's blue collar. He's a winner. That makes sense. He's a guy that you want on your team. What about you? What do you feel about him?
I mean, I like him as a player. I like him as a prospect. I think, he can play in the league a good, decent amount of, a few years or whatever. I just don't think he's a great fit for the Packers as far as what they look for. I have spring measurements. In the spring, he was 5'7", 219. So he's under their high thresholds. Usually they don't draft guys under 5'9". And he's not an elite athlete. He's still a good running back. He's got some decent quickness, but he's probably not the athlete they're looking for. And then, his play in the passing game as far as blocking and receiving would still need a lot of work to meet up to the Packers, thresholds, or not sorry, thresholds, but like what they desire. So I see the guy. I have a feeling he's not on their board unless, again, kind of like Schrader, like he drops late and they just say, fine, we'll just take a shot at him, see what happens. But I think he'll get taken before they'd be willing to take him.
His pro comp is Kyron Williams, who came out of Notre Dame a couple years ago. A guy that I was a little surprised at his success in the league. So maybe. I did see they did utilize him in the passing game in the national championship. I saw that he does his pass pro isn't terrible. He just needs probably a little bit of work.
Yeah.
And I think when you have a back that small, obviously there's going to be some concerns because you're blocking defensive ends who might have almost a full foot on you as far as height. But the fact that he shows some kind of pop when he is back there in pass pro, he does have hands. He's for a guy of his size and his build, you think he'd be a little bit better in between the tackles, but there is a role there. There is a role there. Whether it's with the Packers, I can't say, but there definitely is a role there. And just like Schrader, I really just want to see, how this shakes out. Obviously the combine could, blow this all out of the water if for some reason, they run like 4 threes and, bench 30 reps and things of that nature. And, but it'll be an interesting thing to watch. It'll be interesting to watch for Corum, most definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't see him at 5'7". That is concerning.
Yeah, I threw a source or connection, whatever. I got the Bledsoe measurements from the spring. So yeah, he was a little over 5'7" in the spring.
All right. Well, we'll see how he plays out. So now we do have a back that I am very keenly interested in. He hasn't really gotten a whole lot of fanfare, and that's what happens when you play at, some of the smaller schools, the mid-majors, as they like to say when you're talking about the NCAA tournament. And that's Rasheen Ali out of Marshall. A little bit bigger at 5'10". So we've got, some pro, size. And he has had some production, over, 1,000 yards twice in his career. You like him, Brian?
Yeah, he's a player I like a lot. I wish he hadn't torn his bicep in the Senior Bowl because that's going to be obviously it's going to be a red flag. He's probably not going to be really work out Senior Bowl and others, or not Senior Bowl, work out of the combine and stuff like that. But yeah, he's a player I really liked. He kind of had a little bit of a blow up season in 2021, and then he got injured 2022, and then he also had some personal issues he was dealing with. So he only played I think 3 games last year. And then he came back this year, as good as ever, basically, and over 1,000 yards again this year. He's a great fit for the zone scheme. He's 5'11", 205 or 204, something like that. He's got the quickness, he's got the agility. He can do the one cut, and he takes off type of stuff. He can catch the ball. He's a decent blocker, still improving, but he's a decent blocker. So he'd be a good fit for the Packers.
My only concern, other than the torn bicep, is probably I'd like to see him a little bit more development in his running style. See him a bit of a one cut kind of guy, which nothing wrong with that. But sometimes, making the cut too soon, making the cut too late. So that could be an issue as far as at the next level, because sometimes if you don't time that cut just right, you go from, even in a play that's excellently defended, you can go from a 2-yard gain to a negative 3-yard gain, depending on how you dice it up. Ball security is a little bit of an issue. And then you brought up the off the field concerns. And, when you're coming from a small school, you got to be perfect, and in most cases, you got to be perfect because, guys are already going to knock you from, where you're coming from. So then when you have additional issues, you're almost, taking yourself off the board, depending on, each prospect's, evaluation. But I do like him. You think the Packers will pull the string?
I mean, they could. I mean, like I said, he's a day 3 pick, of course, but I could see him take a shot at him in the 6th round, something like that, if he's still there.
The bicep is something definitely to monitor. I've never had a biceps injury in my career, so I can't even tell you what I could test with a torn bicep. I mean,
maybe he runs a 40, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, there's it's just one of those things where you don't really know how much you use a muscle until you have to use a muscle.
Yeah, but then again, when you're running, you're pumping your arms. So
yeah, you're pumping your arms like that.
Probably not.
Yeah, that pump. I tell you, when I had a running coach, that the pump is everything. It really is everything. So yeah, I don't know what he's gonna do. He may not do anything, but
probably.
So we'll be looking forward to seeing how that plays out with him as well.
Yep.
Right. So speaking of biceps, there's another guy who's huge, who many might be looking at as the replacement for A.J. Dillon. And, we can't leave him off. We probably got to, cover him for 20 minutes because otherwise people will get upset. But that's Wisconsin's own Braylon Allen. Yep. I mean, he's what, 6'2", 245?
Yeah.
So
let's see that. We'll see what he comes at a combine.
Yeah, we'll see what he comes in at. Yeah, I really want to see what he comes in at. Are you really that big?
Pretty big dude, so I think probably.
He looks big on tape, but then well, put it this way: everybody looks big on TV, and then you get down on the field, you're like, oh, we're not as big, So I mean, besides all of that, I mean, the physicality is there. He's got a little bit of, I wouldn't say he's a plus athlete per se, but he has a little bit of wiggle, what I like to call wiggle to him for a guy of his size. You have to kind of put it in perspective, if he is truly that size, there's going to be obviously like a little bit of limitation to, how fluid an athlete can be. The one thing I don't understand is for him being that size, and that's why the measurement at the combine comes into play, is he's not a great pass protector. And I'm like, if you're already 6'2" and you're pushing 250, like there should be no problem with you being able to clean up a linebacker or a defensive end. And then obviously, for a guy that size, obviously the speed is going to be a question. So can he run faster than 4.6? If he falls into the 4.7 range, which God, I hope not, now you're questioning, like, is this a draftable player? And I know that, the Packers faithful, like, they want to draft the entire Wisconsin team if they could. But if he does not run well, oh my gosh, it's going to be reminiscent of what's that guy from Wisconsin way back in the day?
Ron Dane.
Ron Dane, yep, Ron Dane. Gosh, I still shudder at what happened there. Thank God he went to the Giants. But yeah, like the running is going to the run, the shuttle, all of that is going to be. I mean, if he benches 40, that's great, but can he run? And then can he pick up pass pro? Because if you're that big, I shouldn't have to take you off of third down for pass pro. If we're not, doing some kind of leak out or screen or something of that nature, if you ran it on first, ran it on second, I should be able to keep you in on third down and just at least just be the blocker for the quarterback. So those are my big things. Do you have any other concerns?
His ability to contribute as a receiver, that's going to be big because the Packers like their running backs able to contribute as receivers. I don't know how much he just doesn't look very comfortable as a receiver in the passing game. So and of course obviously like his size and stuff, like just his running style. He's more fit to like a gap scheme where he's getting the ball 20 times a game. That's just not going to be really the good Packers. That's why I don't think he's a great fit. I think if they took him, it'd be like a similar. He'd end up having a similar like career to AJ Dillon as far as in Green Bay. Like he'd have some good play games here and there, but he'd be kind of inconsistent at times, and the numbers wouldn't be what people were hoping for.
I see him, regardless of all that, I see him as possibly an upgrade to AJ in the running game. I think AJ has him in the passing game. And this is just me, God forbid, I have to run into AJ at a game. But I feel like when I look at the tape, I think defenders would run away from AJ just because AJ was AJ. I mean, being a smaller defensive back myself, as they say, you make business decisions.
Yeah.
But Braylon Allen has a different kind of mentality. Braylon Allen forces you to make the business decision, but not the business decision that's in your favor.
Of course not.
Braylon Allen is like so going back way back in the day, I had a friend who played ball down in Georgia. He was running up against Jamal Lewis. My friend is the safety. Jamal Lewis is the running back. Right. Now, Jamal Lewis comes through the hole. Jamal Lewis points at him like, I could run for a touchdown, but I'm not going to run for a touchdown until I run you over first. That's Braylon Allen.
Yeah.
So in the running game, I think he's the upgrade. Could he matriculate to the passing game version of AJ Dillon? I don't know. So I'd be interested to see how that goes. So we will see that actually in the combine drills. Like, can we catch a little bit? If there's some drop balls, then there you have it. So whether we
type of thing.
Yep. What do you think? 5th round, 6th round?
For the Packers, probably, 5th, 6th round.
For people with gap schemes, I can definitely see him going in the 3rd or the 4th because that's your guy.
Just hits the ball and just pushes his way through, basically, type of thing. Yeah.
Right. I mean, even people with like, I can even see the Ravens, who've kind of moved away from the gap scheme to a certain extent, but kind of have a pick your poison with Lamar and Allen. That could work for them.
Yeah, it could.
So, but we'll see, Packers fans, on if we get another Wisconsinite in the fold. So moving away from the punishing style running back, we have probably maybe the shiftiest guy in the class. Probably. In Oregon's Bucky Irving. I don't even really know what to call it. Call it spatial awareness.
Mm-hmm.
But Bucky just sees the field differently. When I mean see the field, I mean sees the field around him. He understands what's in his orbit. And then as soon as he draws them in, he has the exit plan to get out of the way and keep moving. He has multiple gears to get in and around traffic. And that's probably a rare trait for this draft class overall. Honestly, in the last several draft classes, to be honest. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, kind of like his spatial awareness, his ability to get in space, to make moves in space, his ability to juke and shift his weight and move around defenders, get around defenders, his ability to catch the ball as a receiver out of the backfield. He's kind of more or less the modern running back that teams look for. The only question I have with him is size, because he was listed at 5'10", 194, but he looks a little bit smaller than that, so he may come in at 5'9", 185. I don't know, who knows, but we'll see. I just don't. My only question with him is I don't know if he can take the pounding of the NFL as far as like a feature back, lead back. He would need to be in a some sort of committee role type of thing, and he'd be playing like third downs and getting some carries here and there and stuff like that. But his ability to get in space and make moves and catch the ball in the backfield, some of that's pretty advanced.
I have him at 5'9", 190. I would love it if he was at 5'10". He might see his name called day two, honestly, if he's at 5'2", at 5'10". And also I need to see the run. There are a couple incidents, despite Bucky being able to maneuver in space, that he's been caught from behind. And to be honest, I know we like to bring it up, like long speed. And it's great when you see a running back break for like a 60, 70-yard run, whatever the case may be. But, I mean, defenders are fast too. I mean, defenders can run 4.2 and 4.3. I think people get kind of too caught up in that, like, oh, well, he got ran down from behind. Well, who was the guy that ran him down? If the guy who ran him down runs 4.3, then okay, like things happen, people get tired, like it.
Well, I mean, even Aaron Jones wasn't that fast coming out.
Right.
Something like that.
I think, it was like maybe Aaron Jones did not have a blazing run time.
4.54, something like that.
Right. It really, and there's what we call, there's track speed and there's game speed. There are guys who run, in shorts, 4.3, but when they're on the field, when you add in, and pads are a whole lot lighter than they used to be. I mean, pads used to be like a couple pounds. A helmet used to be like, you feel like your helmet weighed like 5 to 10 pounds, depending on, your face mask and all that stuff, and the size. But now, like, that stuff is so light. But even still, like, guys who will run, 4.2, 4.3, in the 40, once you're in pads and then, you're a little fatigued, they move a lot slower. So I'm not super concerned about the long speed. I mean, as long as you can run, if you can break for 20, 30 yards, that's fine. I mean, every run doesn't have to be, a 50-yard, and it won't be a 50 to 60-yard run anyway.
Right.
So it's fine. I mean, if you get your team into the red zone, then at that point, it's up to the coaching staff, the quarterback, and the other 10 people, that are lined up on the field to get into the end zone and score. But if you can get within striking distance, I think as a running back, you've done your job.
Right. Definitely.
All right. So moving on up, we've got another not quite a shifty guy, but he's an excellent weapon in the passing game. And that's USC's Marshawn Lloyd. To me, he may be your third down, the quintessential third down back, coming out of the backfield. I'm not for sure if he is your main guy, on first and second down. What do you think, Brian?
I like him. He's somewhat similar. Sorry, to Bucky. He's got some shiftiness to him. Obviously not as shifty as Bucky, but he's a little bit bigger, of course. And he came in actually bigger at the Senior Bowl than I thought. He was like 219 or 217. Sorry. So he put on some bulk a bit because I don't think he played at 217. So he's trying to be that that every down back. I guess he's trying to build himself into. But I mean, similar to Bucky, he doesn't have great track speed, straight speed, whatever you want to call it. He's probably like 4 or 5-ish guy. But again, he's got good vision. He can get outside. He can play, he can do the outside zone stuff. He can catch the ball. He's a decent blocker. Still needs to work, like most college running backs. Very few college running backs come in ready to just be good blockers right away. But I think he's got it. He's how do I say? He's got a good mix, I guess the way I put it. I think kind of similar to what do you think? I think he can play more early downs and stuff. But I think if he's in a committee, that would probably help him. But like most NFL teams are in a committee anyway. But I think he's got some good all around skills.
All around skills, yes. He did put on some bulk. I did notice. I did put on some bulk. He looked a little bit slighter, probably definitely last year. So we'll have to see if that yields some benefits moving forward. He had some fumbling issues over the course of the year and even into last year. I think there was a couple that were just like inexplicable, like he was just running and the ball just
fell out of his
popped
hand.
out. I was, and so, I mean, I don't know if that's gonna, affect him tremendously, but I mean, how many times have we seen on YouTube where the you know, or for instance, like the guy's about to score and he spikes the ball before he crosses the
Before it
end zone.
crosses. Yeah.
It's just when you think about stuff like that, and then Marshawn's just running, and then the ball just like whoop, and then like, oh, so you don't really see that you don't see that in the NFL. So it'd be interesting to see how evaluators take that into concern. Like, hey, and I haven't really broken down his run technique, if that makes sense. So I don't know if there's something's like, if he just moves his wrist this way and clenches his fist that way, then
Right.
the ball will stay, in his grip. I haven't broken it down into that quiet science yet. I'm sure some evaluators have been literally like slow-mo, like literally watching the arm move as the leg moves. And it could be something as a simple adjustment that he just didn't get at USC, which would be kind of damning on Lincoln Riley, but that's another story.
Right.
But going on, we've got Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. I'm a little fickle on Jalen Wright. He's kind of an okay guy to me. I think I need to see the testing to see if he has the chops. I mean, he's definitely got the size. He's probably maybe one of the bigger backs outside of Braylon Allen. He should possibly clean 6 feet, if not maybe somewhere between 5'10" and a half and 5'11" and a quarter. But it's just like the little things with Jalen Wright. Like when it comes to, he goes down way too easily for me. Kind of gives me reminiscent of AJ, earlier in the season where it seemed like if he ran into like a tumbleweed, he just kind of keel over. Did you see anything similar to that, Brian?
Actually, I saw him a little bit differently. I thought his contact balance is pretty solid. He was listed at 210 by Tennessee, of course. But yeah, I felt like his contact balance is pretty solid for a guy that at his size. And I just like his explosiveness. And he's got some pretty good long speed. You see him just take off sometimes. He had a few like 50, 60 yarders or whatever it was this past season. He was actually a backup the year before to Jabari Small. It was kind of interesting. But anyway, so yeah, I found him to be pretty explosive on the field. In the passing game, they didn't give him a lot of opportunities from what I can remember. But I think his hands were okay. That's just one thing I want to see at the combine, him in the receiving drills. But yeah, like I said, his biggest calling card that I saw liked was explosiveness and his speed.
True. He definitely had some explosiveness to him. Tennessee did not have the best offensive line. And maybe that's why I feel the way I feel about him. But when he was given an opportunity to actually, get into the open field, he did do well. Yeah, but yeah, he did not get any pass reps at Tennessee, which I'm really going to put on the offensive line because as we covered with Joe Milton last week, it was rough. It was rough. Joe Milton was a running back himself, if you ask me. Basically. So I guess for me, I can't really project him as as well as I'd like to. We have to probably see how he looks getting into camp. Mm-hmm. But I do have to agree, based on just the basic metrics alone, the Packers could be interested just off of the size, off of the long speed. Based on Tennessee's offensive line, whether it was meant to be that way or not be that way, he has some experience in pass protection because it broke down way too soon. And that's probably also explains why he doesn't have any real pass reps, because the line just couldn't hold up. So despite my kind of buyer aversion to him, this may be the first guy that the Packers might actually have some decent interest in. I really got to see the pass catching drills in the combine, verified by the 40 and the 20, and then just kind of see where we kind of shake out from there. But honestly, in this class, I think he may be a day 2 pick.
Yeah, I agree. He probably, if it costs a little bit stronger, maybe he'd be an early day 3 type guy. But yeah, he's probably day 2, probably like 3rd round.
Yeah, I'm thinking like middle to comp pick time. And it's really gonna go into the next guys we're getting ready to cover, and where teams see them shake out, because like we mentioned with the quarterbacks, it really determines the rest of the class. And then there's going to be the guys who got their guy, and there's going to be the guys like, I need a guy, and then I gotta have a guy. And then Jalen Wright is probably that guy. Like, I need a guy, I gotta have a guy. I can't let him go, because if not, there's no telling what's left, going into like day 3. God forbid you're looking for a running back on day 3, especially if you need a running back to have impact right away.
Right, to be like your guy.
To be your guy.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of guys, probably one of, I'd probably say probably the maybe the safest, if we can talk about safety for a running back, probably the safest pick, and that is the Kentucky Wildcats' Ray Davis. He is probably the best all-around back. If you're saying about a guy who could do a little bit of everything, not the fastest guy by any means, not a slow guy. And like I said, I don't need a running back, and teams shouldn't be looking for running backs. Oh, can he rip it off for 50 yards? I'm like, can the guy get you a first down? And that's Ray Davis. So I like him, as far as like, if this is like an eventual, like, okay, we need a guy to, replace, Aaron Jones in the long run. I think he could be a potential, first down back. He may not do it like Aaron Jones, because he's not Aaron Jones, and seldom running backs are. But if you're looking for like, hey, this is the guy that I can give the ball to, who's going to get me, 4, 5, 6 yards here and there, a little bit of a wrinkle into the passing game, I think Davis could be your guy for a lot of teams. What do you think?
I love Davis for the Packers, especially as the Packers as a fit. He's super quick. He's got some jukes moves on him. He's always trying to stutter step and juke. He's got some good contact balance, not like high level like Javonte. If you remember Javonte Williams from UNC, not that kind of contact balance, but he's got pretty good contact balance. The only concern with him at least for the Packers is his size. He came in as just 5'8.5", 220. They usually like their guys about 5'9", and then he's also older. He's going to be turning 25 in November. So that's a concern at least for the Packers. But for me personally, like, I like him a lot. I think he'd be a really good fit for the Packers, like I said. And then, although Kentucky didn't throw him a lot of passes, when they did, he looked super natural catching the ball, like out of the backfield, running, wheel routes, and even running some deep routes and stuff like that, catching the balls and touchdowns. He has a nose for the end zone for sure. He had I think 15 or 16 touchdowns this year, something like that. And then he had like a couple receiving touchdowns too. So I think his speed, like I said, is good. I'd say it's probably slightly above average. But yeah, I think, like I said, he'd be a great fit for the Packers. Just the only thing I'm curious about to see is if they if they don't like his height and his age. That's the only things I think that might cause him to not want to take him or whatever.
I get the age thing because obviously you're looking at an investment, like, hey, I'm about to invest, multi-million dollars into an individual. And obviously you want to get the maximum return. But as I wrote about probably going into the back end of the season, the Packers Super Bowl window is back open.
Yep.
The roster's in a great spot where guys are locked down for 3-4 years,
Yep.
and that's when I expect to win, a Super Bowl. Not going on too much of a tangent, but when you take the first round, the expectation is they're going to get you a Super Bowl, and Aaron Rodgers did that, Favre did that, so at this point, I'm just trying to get my guy to win a Super Bowl. So if he's at 25, that's cool. If we win a Super Bowl between 25 and the time Ray Davis turns 30, then that's a pick well spent. If we win 2, then that's a pick definitely well spent. So,
Right.
I mean, most athletes, I mean, the after 30 thing is real. There's definitely
Especially running backs, tear in the body and
especially
stuff
running
like that.
back, you get up early and you have a little bit of creak in you, you take a little bit longer to get going,
Yeah.
but I mean, running backs in general don't have a long shelf life. So this is really just about, okay, I got 5 years to maximize this talent, maybe 6, is this the guy that can get me to the promised land? And if the answer is yes, then I wouldn't hesitate on pulling the plug. I mean, uh, running backs will come and go, as they always tend to do. So if he can lead the backfield for 4 or 5 years, I mean, honestly, I think you've got a good pick. I mean, honestly, that's really what I can deem success for a pick anyway. Is if we're talking, let's say, I think Ray Davis, depending on measurement, is probably a solid day 2 pick. So then you're looking at a 3 to 4 year contract. So if Ray Davis is still on my team in 3 to 4 years, he's put in the production that I expect for a day 2 pick, which is, typically a guy who's seeing maybe anywhere between 50 and 75% of your snaps on offense, and the stats show that, then I won with that pick. I don't care if, I mean, running backs don't run for 15 years anyway. So, I mean, I don't get the knock on the age. I know multiple teams do consider that, but if the guy's a winner, the guy's a winner.
Yep.
So now we're moving into our top echelon guys, and I wish he wasn't hurt because I do think he's the best running back in the class.
Right.
That's Texas Jonathan Brooks. Texas has been doing really good. I mean, they had Bijan and Roshan, and I mean, honestly, if you look at Texas in a history, if there was a running back, you may just have to say Texas, or put it this way, the state of Texas. If you look at all the running backs, I mean, because if you go into the Oklahoma backs that are originally from Texas, I mean, Texas is a breeding ground for running backs, and Jonathan Brooks, if he can return to form, may be another one of those guys. How do you feel about him?
I mean, yeah, like you said, if it weren't for the injury, I feel a lot better about him. He'd probably be my running back 1. But that's an injury, late in the season, so it means he's gonna, miss probably the first 4 games of the season because he tore his ACL in November. So he's probably, like I said, he's probably gonna miss at least the first 4 games of the season. So that it's gonna impact his production as a rookie, is how much he can impact your team as a rookie. He's not gonna be there for training camp really, obviously off season stuff not really. So that's something for medical teams to monitor. And especially how conservative the Packers tend to be with injuries. They tend not to like to take guys bring guys injured who are injured already, for the most part, especially unless it's like later in the draft. But anyway, with that being said, he does kind of remind me a little bit of Aaron Jones. He's got some speed, but he's not super fast. But he's just got moves. He's got really good vision. He can catch the ball in the backfield. He's got decent size. He was about 6'207" in the spring, so hopefully he can keep that size up. But yeah, he's like I said, the only thing negative I think physically from him is again that long speed. His long speed is kind of average. You see him getting caught from behind at times, but he's got pretty much everything else you want in a number one running back. And he doesn't actually I forgot to say his power, like when he runs, it's not really a super powerful runner, but other than that type of stuff, I think he's, like I say, he's got pretty much everything you want.
Yeah, and going into the power, his running style is probably, could use some fine tuning because he runs like he's a powerful runner, but he's not a powerful runner. And that could be, why, he's in the predicament he's in now. I remember back in the day, running backs were coached, oh, man, you got to run somebody over, run hard in the tackle, and that's not really,
the case anymore.
the case, yeah, it's not the case anymore, especially if you want a long career. So there might need to be some coaching adjustment into how he runs, and that could, one, keep him healthy, and then actually increase his production. But probably size, speed. I think he's it. It really just comes down to the medical, and they obviously Gutekunst shocked us last year with taking Musgrave, and it's come to, like, it really just boils down to the surgery, who did the surgery, how the surgery is progressing. I'm sure that the medical team will do their own evaluations. I'd be surprised if there's any team that does not evaluate Jonathan Brooks as far as, like, from top to bottom. And obviously, you're saying, he might miss the first 4, maybe even more. The Packers are very, very protective of players who are hurt. He may miss half the season, but
they may try and, because they're trying to, extend his career type of stuff. Yeah.
Right. I mean, AJ Dillon, but we had also, Williams was still here on the fold, but AJ played like a couple snaps every game for the entire of his rookie season, while Jamal was still here. So, while we still have Aaron Jones, while we might still have, AJ Dillon, while we might still have Emmanuel Wilson and Patrick Taylor, they can afford to shelve Jonathan Brooks for half the year until he's ready. And then, he can break out when it's time for that to happen. So I feel like if had he been healthy, hell, Texas may have won the national championship and we'd be talking about a first round pick. I think if the Packers do want him, if they are interested, it may have to cost them one of those second round picks. What do you think?
Yeah, probably. Like I said, because he's probably going to go in that late second round, maybe mid second round area. So yeah, probably, I'd say so.
He's just a cut above, and when you're a cut above, that increases the, especially in this class where there's going to be folks that guys love, and there's going to be folks that guys are kind of like, yeah. So it's going to cost you to get Jonathan Brooks services for 2024.
Yep.
So with Brooks aside, it's really just a foot race based on really the health or how you feel, but probably the, quintessential RB1 for the class is Florida State's Trey Benson, and presents similar to Jonathan Brooks in a lot of ways. He may even be a little bit bigger. So I could you could ask me on any day, like, oh, which one is it, Benson or is it Brooks? I say Benson. Some days I might say Brooks. As far as when you're talking about scheme, Benson, I think, is an absolute like the Cinderella, slipper on the foot kind of thing. I think that is Trey Benson for the Packers offense. He's got doesn't really have a great amount of experience in pass pro, but again, that's all college backs. His build is a little wonky for a running back. Kind of reminds me of I won't say a poor man's, but a rich man's Rashad Jennings, with the sense of he runs kind of up high. But I love the guy. I really do love the guy. So I think honestly, it's just a matter of when those second round picks come around, based on who's left on the board in other positions. I really think it might boil down to if the Packers are willing to wheel and deal for Benson or Brooks. What's your estimation there?
Yeah, he's been one of my favorite backs since class. For the summer, he was my RB1 until Jonathan Brooks came along. But of course, Jonathan Brooks had his injury. But he's a great fit for the Packers. Listed at 6'1", 215. Expected to run in just like in the 4.5 range. But he's got the explosion. He's got the agility. He's got the receiving chops and stuff like that. Even though he wasn't throwing the ball super loud at Florida State. And then they had also kind of rotated their backs a little bit with Toafili and stuff like that. So he didn't get as many carries that you would think or expect of a guy like a number one back, I guess, like him. So the numbers weren't there per se because he only had like 900 yards this year. But it's just when he got his carries, he produced. Like I said, he showed explosion on the field. He's again another kind of guy that can do it all type back, but who can really fit in the Packers scheme and could even take over for Aaron Jones, in 2025.
Yeah, I definitely see Benson as the future, and you hit it on the head with production. Florida State hoards running backs. If you've ever watched Florida State, like probably every other year, there's a running back from Florida State that transfers somewhere else because there's like 30 of them in the locker room, and they all can't get snaps. So, but when Benson is on the field, Benson is the real deal. Hardly ever a negative play. Honestly, and based on his size, if you've ever, if you've seen, the Packers like to motion Jones out to receiver, he has that, to his game as well. I mean, being, above 6 feet, like I would love to see Benson, lined up against a nickelback and seeing how that works out for him on third down. It's neck and neck, honestly, between Benson and Jonathan Brooks. We could go all day long about, who's the better of the two. Right. But as far as like day one, if we're talking about a world post A.J. Dillon, and maybe, Patrick Taylor, he's like, I'm tired of this back and forth. I'm out of here. Benson would definitely be the guy. That could be a definite 1-2 punch, of Benson and Jones, at least for the next possibly year or two. He's probably the one between him and Brooks. It's the combine, that I really want to watch because he can really cement himself as RB1, going into this year's class. It wouldn't surprise me if, some guys based on the back of the first round, which is kind of rough, if some guys trade back just so they're at the top of the second round, just to either capture Benson or Brooks. So, we're at 25. Is it possible? Maybe.
Doubt it, but
it depends on who's there. I like a whole lot more people in the second round than I do like in the back of the first round. That's just how I feel.
A lot of the grades are similar, so
yeah, a lot of the grades are similar. It's like, but if I can get an extra guy in the second round, which is my running back, I'm going back. But that's just me.
Yeah.
All right, so those are our guys.
I want to add quick though was that he runs with some pretty good power, and he's bigger than Jonathan Brooks, so he does have that going for him too. He's got some more power to him.
Yeah, he's definitely got some more power to him, and that might be what puts him over the edge.
Yep.
All right, so we got a couple other guys that we like.
Yep.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite guy that's maybe a little bit off the radar?
Well, a couple guys. Smaller school, another small school guy that a lot of people don't know about. George Holani from Boise State. He's another kind of, I don't want to say small, but kind of like, I guess you could say, kind of average size running back. He's like 5'11", something like that, 210. So kind of like the average size. But he's a guy. He's another kind of all around guy. He can catch the ball in the backfield. He can carry the ball. He's got a little bit of power. He's got a little bit of everything. He's just kind of like like I said, kind of an all around guy. Not really great at any one thing, but he's just solid at everything. But yeah, like 5'10", 203. He's got some decent speed. Just like I said. But he's a guy I kind of like as a late day 3 type guy. And then also Audric Estime from Notre Dame. He's kind of another somewhat similar to Braylon Allen, just kind of like a power runner. He's probably got maybe like since he's a little bit smaller, probably a touch more wiggle than Braylon Allen, but just a similar type back, just a power back who will run you over. He's got more production in the passing game though. He's caught some balls as well, so he's probably a little more developed as a receiver. But he's another guy to keep an eye on. Probably day 3 if the Packers take someone like him. Yeah. What about you?
Going back to Holani, which I haven't seen a whole lot of tape on, but in a class that has so many undersized backs, like in the 5'9" and below range, he could find himself overdrafted, just by nature of being, possibly if he checks in at 5'11", approaching 6 foot, he may find himself like, the production's there. I mean, I think like almost 4,000 scrimmage yards, I think, if maybe a little bit more. I mean, he did it at Boise State, so they're going to question, the level of competition to a degree. They'll probably, kind of hold that into consideration. But it's the fact that he did it. And, if you're looking for a back, like say, Rasheen Ali goes off the board, and you're trying to dig into the grab bag, for lack of better words, that might be a guy that people pull the trigger on. Going back into the undersized backs, and people are going to say, "Oh, it's because of the name," but I do like Frank Gore Jr. He's a little bit smaller than his dad, but he runs similar to his dad. I can't say just like his dad because he doesn't.
Right.
A little bit more usage in the passing game. I think he's probably a tad bit faster than his dad, but that's probably because he's a little bit smaller, a little bit more slender on the frame. But in watching his tape, it's the little things when it comes to running inside. A lot of people don't understand that there are little technical things that you do to be an exceptional runner inside. When you've got 5 bodies that are moving or trying to move in sync with each other in the offensive line. You've got a quarterback that's either trying to get out of the way or trying to decoy defenders into thinking he still has the ball. And then you actually have the defense itself that is trying to get to you. And it's just watching him run through the hole and him, like, it's something you just have to appreciate. It's a work of art, the way he essentially has no wasted movement in the trenches. A lot of guys, they get in the trenches, they try to make themselves small, and they just try to bail out. But there is a science to running inside, and Frank Gore Jr. has that science nailed down. So now at 5'7", is he going to be a lead back in the NFL? Probably not. But if you needed a guy, maybe that you put him in on second down, and they're like, oh, they're about to throw the ball. And then the defense maybe lightens up the box. But, you give it to him, and then you see what happens. And maybe he gives you that 4 to 5 yard gain. So that way, third down, is, if it's not already a first down, third down is much more manageable, and that opens up your playbook. I think that's what Frank Gore Jr. brings to the table is, as an inside runner, he keeps the playbook open. So if he's able to find the same success in the NFL that he found in college, when you need those tough yardage situations, he'll keep the playbook open to where you can go from short yardage and then you can flip to like, okay, like let me do a screen, let me do like a circles concept, something to that nature. He brings that flexibility to an offense, even though he's a little bit undersized. As far as running backs go, he's probably one of my favorite out of everybody that we'll see at the combine. If the numbers jump off the tape, then he might find himself as a primary target in the 4th round. But I think maybe his ceiling might be in the 5th round.
Probably because of the size, yeah.
Yeah, because of the size.
5'7", 199.
Yeah, that's hard to overcome.
Yep.
All right, well, we're going to wrap it up here, Cheesehead fans. Catch us next week, and we're going to cover, I'm sure, what I like to call you guys' favorite position, the wide receivers.
It's a big group.
I'm letting out a sigh because that's a lot of players.
There's a lot of guys. Yeah.
A lot of guys. Some guys are going to get left out. Some guys that you guys love, you're not going to be happy what we have to say about them. And then there's going to be some other guys that maybe you said like, So I'm looking forward to it, not looking forward to it at the same time, because
right,
as usual, we have the typical wide receiver in the 1st round crew. So it'll be interesting to say the least, Brian.
Yep, it will be for sure.
All right, CHTV fans, we're out of here. Have a great rest of your weekend. And as always, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.